Hello everybody and welcome back to Dollar Tree Dinners. On Wednesday, we cook dinner with whatever's in the fridge. And I thought today we'd take it one step further and I'm just gonna show you an entire day of eating using up some things in my fridge. It is currently 11:30. We are not really breakfast people. We usually wake up sometime between 7 and 8:30-ish depending on the day. And we almost always just start with a cup of coffee. I use Folgers, just Colombian coffee, and I only brew about a half pot a day. That's more than enough for the two of us. I like to keep my coffee super simple, and my creamer of choice is the International Delight. I either do the caramel macchiato or the Cinnabon one. I've been doing caramel macchiato almost every day for the past like 3 years, and I did Cinnabon for like 3 months of that. So mostly this is the one that I use. And our breakfast is almost always some kind of a breakfast sandwich or breakfast burrito. This week I've been doing sausage, egg, and cheese English muffins. Sometimes I do croissants when I get those on clearance. Most of the time it's English muffins. Every so often I'll do bagels, but it's the same breakfast. I have the same thing. I always get up, make my cup of coffee, clean up the kitchen from last night's dinner because I'm not a nighttime cleaner, I am a morning cleaner. Get ready for the day, and then, 2 to 3 hours into my day, that's when I get started on breakfast. I am a simple creature and I like it that way. So I just do frozen prepared sausage patties. And since my sausage patties are frozen, I like to give those a little bit of a head start before I add in the eggs. Then I go in with some of my cooking fat. This can be butter, margarine, sausage fat, bacon fat, whatever you have. And then I know eggs are still expensive and we really only use them for breakfast and the occasional thing. And I like to puncture that yolk just to make the breakfast sandwich cleaner to eat. All right, and then I'll use the residual fat in the skillet to toast the English muffins, which these English muffins don't want to pull apart. There we go. And just kind of zhuzh those around in whatever's left in the pan. Turn the heat down a little bit. And then Michael likes extra cheese on his. I'm fine with just regular cheese. So I'll put a piece of cheese on both his sausage and egg. Is that my hair? I think so. Oops. And for mine, I just do one slice of cheese. And this is good old American cheese, which is the best cheese for breakfast sandwiches. And then once my muffins are toasted, we're ready to assemble. You guys know I like to be a little extra and wrap my breakfast sandwiches just like the fast food ones. So that one's mine. And that one is Michael's. And I will also let these kind of sit and steam for about 5 to 10 minutes because they're piping hot right now. And when you get a breakfast sandwich from the drive-thru, you're usually driving at home. So this is me driving at home, but I like to let it sit for about 5 minutes. It is almost 3 o'clock, so it's lunchtime, and I've still been working through the ingredients from Friday's video, which was the Taco Bell at home, where we did the cheesy gordita crunch and the chicken quesadilla. So I made those a couple of times, but then I switched to making grilled stuffed burritos, which is also a discontinued Taco Bell item. The main ingredient for the grilled stuffed burrito was the Baja sauce, which we covered in that Friday video. So I've added a couple of ingredients from my pantry and my fridge, and I'll show you how I make the grilled stuffed burrito. So first thing I'm using are burrito-sized flour tortillas. This is that same Tyson grilled fajita chicken that I showed in the chicken quesadilla video. I just chopped it up and I mixed it with some pre-cooked microwavable Spanish rice. These are kind of homemade refried beans. I had a can of black beans in my pantry, some jalapeno, onion. I added some spices to it. I'm pretty sure I even added some leftover refried beans to it. This is well on its way out the door because I'm pretty sure I made this over a week ago, but it still tastes fine, so we've still been using it. Then we have our homemade Baja sauce. Again, covered that in Friday's video. I have some pico de gallo. This is the mild cilantro salsa that I talked about in the Mexi Melt video. And then I have my pre-mixed 3 cheese blends, so cheddar, mozzarella, Monterey Jack. But most of these ingredients are from Friday's video. So I'm gonna take a burrito-sized tortilla that I warmed up on the stovetop, and I'm gonna add some of my chicken and rice mixture, some of my beans from the fridge. Again, I warmed both of these up in the microwave, so they're not cold. I'm gonna go in there with a spoonful of our Baja sauce. I try to drain this pico really well so it doesn't make the burrito too soupy. And then some 3 cheese blend. All right, we're gonna do our wrap. And I'm gonna make a couple of these for our lunch today. Michael kept saying how he wished that these were cheesier, so I made his grilled cheese burrito style. I might try that myself today. So the way I did that was I took a small piece of parchment paper, laid that in my skillet, along with a handful of shredded 3 cheese blend. And I grilled 1/2 of the burrito. So then I'll just set that down on top of the cheese and let it melt down. Then once that is melted, move it over to my paper wrapper and wrap it up. And that's basically how to make the grilled cheese burrito. And you can add whatever toppings you want. So I used up all of my chicken and rice mixture. I only have like a spoonful of this bean mixture left, but again, this is over a week old. I do still have some Baja sauce left. I have some pico left, and I still have some 3 cheese blend. So it is now 6:48 and we just got home from the kids' football practice. They have practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I am absolutely starving, so let's go ahead and do some shopping in the fridge and figure out what we're making for dinner. So the first stop is the vegetable drawer. We'll get to that, but I do have a couple of things in here that I need to use up before they go bad. Specifically these 2 zucchinis. I have an orange bell pepper, and I have some sliced mushrooms. I bought this all a little over a week ago, intending to make some hibachi that I didn't end up actually making. So let's take that out, and let's also take out this meat that is starting to oxidize. This cucumber looks like it got frozen. Oops. Well, this cucumber might not be good anymore because that looks like it got frozen. I have some lettuce, some green onion. I don't know if I'm going to use that for anything tonight. And now we've got the main portion of the fridge, and I'm going to pull out the other half of this onion. I'm also going to grab some of my homemade chicken stock. I have about 2 ounces of cream cheese left in here from making spaghetti the other day. And you know, I guess we might as well use up the rest of this cheese from lunch. So that was quick and easy because I already knew what I had. So I already knew kind of what I'm gonna be making for dinner tonight, which is something like a stuffed pepper skillet, but just kind of using the stuff that I have on hand. So as far as this goes, again, this is starting to oxidize. I'm gonna go and use it up. Browning does not necessarily mean bad, it just means oxidation. This is ground beef and this is ground pork. I got some on clearance and I made some spaghetti the other day and I used half of each to make the spaghetti. And so now I have half of each for tonight's dinner. I'm gonna grab some rice and some tomato sauce from out of my pantry. And then none of these ingredients are pre-seasoned, not even my homemade chicken stock that doesn't have any salt in it whatsoever. So as far as seasonings go, I'm probably gonna use some really basic stuff, salt, pepper, Italian seasoning, red pepper flake, things like that. So we have somewhat of a plan, but we are not following any specific recipe. So let's go ahead and get started. We've got a little bit of chopping to do, starting with our bell pepper. I always love it. There's just something so satisfying to me about cutting open a bell pepper and finding like 1 or 2 mini bell peppers inside of it. I think I'm just gonna go for a rough chop on everything. And I always like to chop down my mushrooms, even though they're sliced. They're just such big pieces. I'm really surprised at how long these mushrooms have survived in my fridge. No recipe, no rhyme, no reason, just throwing some stuff in a pot and calling it dinner. So I was going to be using this meat on Sunday to make my Sloppy Joe cornbread bake for us, but we all ended up having a late lunch, so when dinner time came around, it just ended up being a fend for yourself night. Me and Michael had leftover spaghetti, the kids had chicken nuggets, and I didn't have to cook anything. But now I have all this ground meat in my fridge that doesn't really have a plan. And so it's gonna get used up today. So I do know that the beef that I bought was 73% beef and then the pork was 85% pork. So we do have a fair amount of fat kind of coming off of these. Sometimes I drain things, sometimes I don't. It really depends on how I'm feeling that day and the volume of fat that comes off of things. Like it seems like a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain it. We can add back in a little bit, but again, that was a lot. Now I'm gonna add in my veggies. And this pot is gonna be quite full. But a couple of these ingredients, like the mushrooms and the zucchini, are probably gonna wilt down a little bit. And we can go ahead and season those up with some salt. Come on. And pepper. Okay. Let's add in a little bit more of that fat. And then I'm gonna cover this and let everything kind of soften up a little bit, maybe about 5 minutes. I had a feeling that this was going to be the case, but with how full that skillet is, I think it's in my best interest to cook the rice in the rice cooker. But I am still going to use my chicken stock to make it, since I have some to use up. When I'm making it in the rice cooker, as you can see, I rinse it a few times just to get off that excess starch. And I like to use a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 cup rice to 1 cup liquid in the rice cooker. On the stovetop, I do a 2-to-1. So 1 cup rice to 2 cups liquid. So for today, I'm doing 2 cups rice and 2 cups chicken broth. Oh, it's not plugged in. And last Wednesday when I made those chicken enchiladas and I had frozen chicken, I had so many people telling me I should have just used my Instant Pot. But this is not an Instant Pot, it's a rice cooker. They could see it in the background of the video and it does kind of look, you know, similar to an Instant Pot. But it just cooks rice and it has a slow cooker and like a saute feature. It's called a multi-cooker. I love it. It's one of my favorite kitchen appliances, but it is not a pressure cooker. So it would not have worked to cook frozen chicken. But here's what we're looking like on our meat and veggies. So I think now I'm going to go in with my can of tomato sauce. This is just a 15-ounce can. And then I added about a cup of chicken broth into the can, just so I could get the rest of the tomato sauce out of it. I did add a little bit of salt and pepper to the beef and vegetables to help them reduce down a bit. Oh, that is perfect. Turn down that heat to a simmer. That's exactly the kind of consistency I was going for. That's perfect. Now I'm going to season it fairly well. A little bit more salt. That's a simmer, right? A lot more pepper. And just some Italian seasoning. Basically making a DIY pasta sauce since I don't have any pasta sauce. I would be using pasta sauce if that's what I had. And now we get to taste for seasonings. Wow, I'm actually genuinely surprised that I kind of nailed that first go. Oh yeah, I'm gonna throw some red pepper flake in there. It's for a little touch of heat. This is how I usually measure seasonings. I just kind of pour and hope for the best. I did almost forget though that I had, you know, this 2 ounces of cream cheese. It's not enough to really make this cheesy. It's just gonna add a little bit of creamy richness to it. And it's just a way for me to kind of use this up. Also, I appreciated how many of you guys loved my joke about no cream cheese left behind last week as well. These clean out the fridge videos are a really fun and creative way for me to use what I already have on hand and hopefully find some new favorite dinners, because that's always been my issue, is that I cook with whatever I've got. I reference like 5 or 6 different recipes and I can never remember how I made something in the event that we like it. So I think this one's gonna be a good one though. So my rice cooker just went off and my meat and vegetable sauce has been simmering. This stuff tastes so good. I did add that little bit of cream cheese, which just adds a tiny amount of like creaminess and richness to it. I'm gonna regret it. I think I'm gonna regret it if I mix the rice into it. I think we're just gonna assemble these as bowls and call it good. So I'm gonna start with a bed of rice. Again, let's try to take out some of these little burnt bits from the bottom. That never happens when I use water, but it does happen when I use other things like broth. We do have beautiful, perfect, fluffy rice, so definitely paid off. I'm gonna go over top of that with some of our saucy beef mixture. So again, these are all the components of like a stuffed pepper or a zucchini boat, just deconstructed. I think I'm gonna call this a harvest bowl because it's got a ton of different veggies in it and you can swap out the veggies depending on what you have on hand. And then we're gonna finish that off with some shredded cheese. And there we go. That is dinner. So I think that's a wrap of today. We did breakfast sandwich, coffee, grilled stuffed burritos, and a harvest bowl. I think that's the best way to describe it, although it does really taste like a stuffed pepper. I like the meaty texture of the addition of the mushrooms, and I really like the squeaky texture of zucchini. You guys will have to let me know if that makes sense to you, but that's what I like about zucchini is that they're kind of squeaky to eat. These little bowls are delicious. I'm really excited to eat the leftovers. I think everything I made today turned out really good. The other thing I like about this is that it didn't create a lot of dishes. I really only dirtied a knife, a cutting board, a pot, and the insert to my rice cooker. So really easy, low mess, low fuss dinner. So today was a really productive fridge clean out day. Used up a ton of vegetables before they went bad, and now I have some lunches for the week. So I do a lot of cooking for this channel, and then for the most part, he and I just kind of coast on leftovers unless the kids are here. And then I have to do a little bit more cooking. When the kids are here, I do kind of turn myself into a bit of a short order cook. I like to give them options for breakfasts and lunches, and then we have a family dinner together. So that's kind of how I structure everything. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you again soon.